Blog Talk Radio.
Welcome to the Clio Exchange Express, a conversation about the past, present, and future. A lively discussion between friends, family, pundits, personalities, and potentates, if necessary, in order to teach and learn something new. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the hour. Let's go to the show already in progress. Well, hi there. Here we are again, George. Welcome on board the Clio Exchange Express. I'm Lou Phillips, one of your host conductors for the day, and just wanted you to know up front that we're still going to live up to what we've dedicated this show to do, and that is to make life stops that will educate, inform, and inspire. But we're going to do it a little differently today, and that is I'm going to occupy the center of the circle, and my two co-hosts are going to take on the mantle of doing the interview today. And joining me as usual is my friend from jolly old England, George Chandler, and Rudy Rollins out of New Brunswick, but happens to be in Las Vegas today. Hello, George.
Hey, how you doing? How you doing? Good to be here on the Clio Express. We're looking forward to a wonderful, wonderful interview today. And I'm looking at my watch. I'm hoping that Rudy's going to make it. I think he might be running a little late, but let's just hope he makes it.
Yo, man, I got to fold. I gotta go. Hey, man, I'm here, man. I had to break away for a minute, man. As you know, I moved to Las Vegas, right? And you know, in Vegas, some things stay in Vegas. And I didn't want my money to stay at this table. So I had to get up real quick and make this fast. It was real hot at me, boy, because I was on a roll, man. But I'm here. So what's going on, man? I'm ready.
Well, welcome. Good to have you, man. Good to have you. What's the weather like there? What's the weather like there in Vegas?
Nice and warm, in the 80s, man. Very comfortable, actually. Very comfortable.
I like it. Listen, I just got to ask you a little question here. What did the horse say when it fell over?
I'm dead.
I've fallen and I can't giddy up.
Hey, George, guess what, man? I hate to cut you off, man, but you know what? I was waiting for this because your cat's been killing me, so I figured I'd join the club, man, all right? So I got one for you. Right. I've been digging hard for this one, man. Now, you got to take your time and listen now. What do you call a sad coffee?
I don't know. What do you call a sad?
A depresso.
Oh.
Hey, how was that? How am I doing? Am I in the club, man, or what?
Yeah, we're going to let you in the club. We're going to let you in the club. Listen,
right.
Let's move on here. Let's talk about our guest today. He can also be called a member of the Four Kents, although the association was brief. It came at a very important time in the life of the group. He was born in a small East Texas town and raised in an even smaller West Texas town by the name of Quanah. He was the second of 5 children born to Alice Lane, who essentially raised her kids as a single parent, an industrious household led by a woman who developed and ran her own business to keep the family going. As a youngster, his favorite pastime was playing army with his friends and daydreaming about one day traveling and becoming a businessman. This combination sort of became the foundation of the man he ultimately grew up to be. Athletics were very important throughout his life, and he even fancied himself to be a promising star in baseball and basketball, but found out soon after expanding his competition that his skills were far below the real deals. And so, in 1966, he joined the Army as a way of seeing the world and getting a sure way to a higher education. The Army gave him that and so much more. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Reverend Lou Phillips.
All right.
Yay!
Phil?
Hey,
How
look
you
here.
doing?
I'm doing great, George. Thank you so much for that wonderful introduction, brother. That's pretty good, man.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
It was really
And George,
a very dear friend of mine.
yeah, well, praise the Lord, man. I love you madly. And also, you know, what's really gave me goosebumps was the fact that you pronounced Quanah spot on, boy.
Well, I tell you, that shocked me as well. Because when I first saw the word, I said to myself, how do you pronounce that?
Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
listen, speaking of Quanah,
Mhm.
I want to take you back to those very early teen years.
Yeah.
And what was it like growing up in Quanah?
Well, it was very, very interesting in that it was one of those cities where one community was clearly divided by railroad tracks. You know,
I see.
you've heard of those communities where you guys live on the other side of the tracks. Well, Quanah was just that kind of town because one of the largest train operations in the country, Fort Worth and Denver was the name of the train line, came right through the heart of Quanah, and it was a dusty little town on our side because it seemed to be convenient for the city to stop laying asphalt when they got to the other side of the train tracks, if you know what I mean.
I know exactly what you mean.
and so, you know, during those serious rainstorms, it was difficult for the people who lived down in that area to maneuver. And so ultimately, though, I must admit, the city saw fit to bring gravel down there and spread it on the streets so the tires wouldn't get stuck and those Negroes could get to work.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you this. What was the schools like? You know, those early school years.
Yeah, well, the school was obviously segregated, and we had one schoolhouse in our community that was large enough to cram in all 12 grades. Okay, and so you would have in some situations one class going on the other side of the room while the other class had to sit there and study. And the same teacher, once he finished with that class, would just simply turn to the other side of the room and start teaching the next one, which would be the next grade, of course. And so from the first grade to the 12th grade, we probably traversed no farther than 1,500 square feet, okay? So it was a very small facility that later on, you know, there was some additions made to it that gave the teachers more room to operate in because, you know, the little community began to thrive. It was more of an agricultural kind of community. The population went up in the fall because relatives and others from other parts of Texas would come there in order to provide employment or gain employment with the local farmers who grew cotton. And one of the business operations in Quanah was focused on cotton seed as well as cotton itself. I know you boys are city boys. You never done anything like pick cotton, pull cotton.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
But I wore cotton shirts.
Oh, you wore cotton shirts. Well, you know, you can thank me for a lot of that, okay? Because
so let me ask you something. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I was just going to say, as a youngster, I pulled an awful lot of cotton, man, during the fall season. In fact, our principal at Frederick Douglass High School in Quanah, Texas, would let the students out in the fall to go and pick cotton. And so we would take like a month or 2 months off from school to go pick cotton. And our principal was the overseer for the guy that owned the farm. So it was really something, man.
Now during this time when you were growing up, was also the beginning of the civil rights movement as well. How old were you when you first became aware of the civil rights movement?
Well, by the time the civil rights movement came around, I must have been about 15, 16 years old and living in Dallas. So during my years in Quanah, civil rights was, it's strange to say, man, but it really never was an issue. We knew that there had to be a better life than what we were experiencing, because we were seeing folks on the other side of the track living pretty good in nice houses and all of that. And but when I look at my family, my mom was doing things that allowed her to get to where she could buy her own property and then buy her own house. And back then we didn't do a lot of building of homes. We'd buy them on the other side of town and then have them moved lock, stock, and barrel from that part of the community over across the tracks. And
all right, you mentioned something about you moved to Dallas.
Dallas, yeah.
All right, Rudy, come on in here. We got him in Dallas now. Let's see what we can find. What else we can find out?
Well, I was going to ask you, man, at the early part, what is your fondest memory to Dallas to kind of motivate you to move on? Or what was it about Dallas? Or was Dallas the place that you decided to have a dream and a vision, or was it before that?
Yeah, that's a good question, Rudy. It was before that, actually. My mother passed away at age 15, and at the time that she passed away, my youngest sister was 4, and the next sister up was 6, I believe. And so we were relatively young when she passed away. My little brother was about 9, and so. During all of this time, the principal of the high school decided that he really wanted to impact my life. My brothers and sisters, their father was in the house. My father was not there. And so I became kind of the odd man out, if you will, after my mother passed away. And so my principal took an interest in me, and he had always had an eye on me because I was an outstanding basketball player. I was a singer and competed in state competitions, as a soloist and all that kind of stuff, and ran track, and he was a standout athlete during his years at Bishop College, and so he kind of set the example for me to look at, at the age of 14, 15, 16, 17, like that. And then also much younger than that, earlier than that, that train track that I told you about, I used to lay in my bed at night and hear the train go by, and dream and wonder about, because I'd look out my window and I could see the cars passing by with the lights on and people sitting in their seats, and I used to wonder, where are they going? What is down there that. There's got to be something there, because every day this train comes by with people in it. And then it moved from that to when we would play Army and that kind of thing, and I'd get tired and we'd take a rest. I used to lay back on the ground and look up in the sky, and I'd see these contrails going across the sky. And I used to wonder, I knew it was a plane, but I used to wonder, where in the world are all these folks going? I want to go there. And so that was kind of the genesis of giving me an inner desire to become something that I didn't know what the heck it was, but I knew there had to be something else. And the closest thing I could see to what that something else was my principal. His name was Jesse David Stringer. He's since passed on, he and his wife, but they had no children. And so I essentially became kind of their little project. He used to buy me Easter clothes. You know how on Sundays you used to get those new coats and all that kind of stuff? Well, he always made sure that I had something new on Easter Sunday. And so he kind of became my role model during those early years before going to Dallas.
That's a fantastic story.
Yes, fantastic story, man. You answered all the other questions I was going to ask you. So at this point, you decided to join the Army, right? After, or did you get drafted?
Well, I didn't get drafted. I decided to join the Army after getting to Dallas and, and hitting these hobnob jobs. I can remember one job I worked as a janitor in Texas Instruments. And, I used to push the broom, man, and I'm looking at all these folks going by me, and they're sitting in these offices with their, just clean and neat and driving these cars, and I'm pushing a broom, man, and I'm saying, there's something wrong with this picture, and I was always an, a A-B student in school, so I had a few brain cells that would function properly. And so I got so frustrated working at the main operation of the company that I asked to be transferred to the warehouse so I could be around folks that I could feel like I was a little bit better than, and moved to the warehouse to sweep floors. And then I said after a while I said, I got to do something better than this. And I had a cousin who worked for a company that made starters for cars. And so he was always, dressed neat in a nice little uniform. I was like those folks you told me about in London, George, that liked to wear uniforms and felt like authority.
Yes.
And so I saw that uniform as being an image of authority, and I said, I think I'm going to go work at his company. And so he got me a job there. Well, lo and behold, I didn't realize that where you had to start was in the area where they would bring in old starters that had to be stripped down so that they could be reprocessed and cleaned. And man, it was the most greasiest job, nasty job I've ever seen in my life. And so after working there for a while, I said, man, look, I think I can do better than this in the military. And so I started with a cousin of mine. We decided that we were going to go to the recruiting office together and sign up. And we were going to go in together so we could be together through the whole service. Well, we got down to the recruiting office, and wouldn't you know, my test score was not high enough to go into the Air Force. And so my cousin, he scored high enough to get into the Air Force, and we both started looking at the duties and the kind of things that would happen in the Air Force versus the Army. And he looked at me and said, bye-bye. he said, I'm not going to the Army. I don't want to carry a gun. And so we separated.
Where did you do your basic training?
Basic training for me was done in Fort Polk, Louisiana. And it was quite an experience, man, because during the time I was going through basic training, you're completely oblivious to what's going on around you, except for the fact that I had a leadership role in basic training. I had in high school in Dallas had really excelled in the ROTC program. And so when I got in the military, I knew all about drills and how to handle arms and all this kind of stuff, and how to salute, how to keep your gear and everything up tip-top shape. And so I became the platoon leader for my group. And so that gave me an opportunity really to begin to identify myself as and carry out the skills of a leader. And so
and also you didn't have to do any KP.
Didn't have to do any KP, right? You must have been a platoon leader too.
Yes, I was when I got to AIT.
Yeah, okay.
I was either going to be a platoon leader or a squad leader because I didn't want to do no KP.
No, indeed, that's exactly right, man. And the other wonderful thing about being a platoon leader was that you got a room separate from the guys in the corridor.
That's right.
So I'd have a room like the drill sergeant, man. It really gave you a sense of empowerment, and it gave you a lot of free time. And so being at Fort Polk, I had a chance to really explore other towns, weekend passes and that kind of thing. But the other part that was going on at Fort Polk at this time was the beginning stages of preparing soldiers to go to Vietnam, because the main training facility for troops who were going to go into battle in Vietnam was a place at Fort Polk called Tigerland. And man, we used to, late at night, we'd hear these guys out drilling and going through, combat exercises in Tigerland, because it was just across the fence from where my barracks were, And I'm thinking, Lord have mercy, I don't want to go to Vietnam. I don't want to go through Tigerland. It was enough to be crawling with machine guns firing over your head for me. I said, that's as close as I want to get. Now, keep in mind, I wasn't a little mamsy-pamsy little guy, because I grew, place I lived in Dallas was East Dallas, and an area called Up on the Hill. It's East Dallas off of Dolphin Avenue, which was known to be one of the toughest part of Dallas that you'd ever find during that time. And so folks would avoid with great energy to try to avoid going through that area called Up on the Hill. And so I wasn't naive, but man, it was just something about those drill sergeants and the way they treated you, and the kinds of things that you had to go through without much thought, that really kind of had me saying, I don't want any part of Vietnam,
I know exactly what you mean. Now, you're in the Army now. You finished basic and you finished AIT. Now they're sending you. Where are they sending you?
Well, first orders I got came in with an assignment to go to Vietnam. Those were my first orders, and then just a few days later, man, and I could never figure out why they were changed to Italy, and I don't need to. And I think it had a lot to do with praying uncles and aunts, because I came out of a very deeply religious family, particularly on my father's side. I had a lot of on the other side of my family, on my mother's side, I had a lot of folks going the other way. But on my father's side, we had just many preachers and sisters who were saints in the church, and so they were praying a lot for me, and I knew that had a lot to do with the changing of those orders so quickly. And and in short order, man, after advanced individual training, AIT, I got an assignment to go to Vicenza, Italy. And, like most, country boys, and that's essentially, even though I lived in Dallas, this big country town during those days, I didn't have a clue what that meant, okay? I knew about the Colosseum and Caesar and all that, but when you start relating it to people, I didn't even think about an Italian,
Well, listen. I think I told you a couple of weeks ago, when I got my orders to go to Italy, I said, great. It never dawned on me that they spoke a different language.
Right.
I don't know why. I mean, I knew about Italian, but it just never dawned on me that a whole people could speak a different language to English.
Yeah, right. I mean, and I, the Italians I knew were Dean Martin,
Yeah.
that was Lou, when I found out 40 plus years later why I didn't go, I was the last Private Ryan. I was what they call Private Ryan, that movie. I was the last male to carry my name And one of the things that was a lot of the reason some guys didn't go because you was the last male to carry the name, they wouldn't send you.
Yep, that's exactly right. That's exactly.
And that's what I found out years later why I didn't go to NAM.
Yeah.
Because,
Don't go away. We'll be right back after this stop on the Underground Railroad. Aboard! Clio Exchange Express and the Underground Railroad tour is leaving the station. Next stop, Ripley, Ohio, and the John Parker home. John Parker was born in Norfolk, Virginia, and sold into slavery at the age of 8. He managed to convince a sympathetic woman to purchase him, and at age 18, paid for his freedom and went on to establish a successful foundry and became one of the few African Americans to obtain patents during the 19th century. Parker became an active conductor on the Underground Railroad. He planned and carried out a number of rescue excursions into bordering slave states and brought the fugitive slaves to his home, and then on to other stations and finally to freedom. The John Parker home is located in Ripley, Ohio, and is open to the public. This is Lou Phillips. Join us again next time on the Underground Railroad tour on the Clio Exchange Express.
Well, sure. Once you got to Italy and kind of settled down into your what company was you in, by the way?
560th Signal Battalion.
Okay, what was your duties and what was your duties there? Did you still use your expertise?
oh yeah, absolutely. I during my entire time I served in Italy, I always had a room to myself because I went in.
Talking about privilege.
I went in, positioning myself as a standout trooper. You could go. I was one of those guys. You could walk up to my bed and flip a quarter on it, and it would bounce. So. Wow. So, and my shoes will always shine. My, my foot locker was always positioned. Now I got to tell you, I paid some guys to keep it that way for me, and I paid them, and got gum and all that kind of stuff, so the stuff would stick and stay in that place. And so, so I was always striped. Whenever they do those last minute inspections, you never had to worry about me, and so I earned the spot. And then I worked out of the headquarters office for the commanding officer of the of our unit, and so my skills typing, and so I learned to type in high school, and I could do 100 words a minute and all that kind of stuff, and I understood sentence structure and all of the stuff related to writing good letters, and I was always at the job early and stayed late and all that kind of stuff, right? And I volunteered.
Let me ask you
yeah, I was just going to say, and I volunteered to be his driver, so he really depended on me.
You know what? I'm going to just ask you another question about your leadership. And during after military hours, where did you apply your leadership skills? Did you apply them at all? It was just during the, what I'm saying?
Well,
did you go play basketball? Did you, become a...
Yeah, I formed a softball team for our unit. And needless to say, I became a pitcher and
I was going to say, you the pitcher, right? Of course.
Of course.
That's my next question. Go ahead, sorry.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely.
Oh, man.
And because as I mentioned to you before, I was a real military nut. One of my heroes, man, was Audie Murphy.
John Wayne. I'm up to you, John Wayne. Okay, sorry.
No. My hero was military-wise. That got me plugged into it was Audie Murphy. I think at about.
Okay. Did you see that movie To Hell and Back?
That's what got me. That's what got me.
Wow.
And when I saw that movie, man, I must have been 9-10 years old. I said, man, that's what I want to do, boy. And so
I was about 12 when I saw it.
Oh, it was wonderful, man. It was wonderful.
It's fantastic. It's fantastic.
Yeah. And so the other piece I was going to add to that was that I also, Rudy, as part of the headquarters unit, expressed an interest in being associated with managing secret message transfers. Because in our unit, 560 Signal Battalion, we used to have a communications vault that was part of the network of locations in Europe that monitored communications electronically of other countries. And it was called the Crypto Vault. And the beautiful thing about the Crypto Vault is that it had stored there all kinds of video of military actions all the way back to World War II.
Wow.
And so man, I would go into that Crypto Vault and watch movies all night long of World War II excursions where, it was not released for public consumption. And it was all military, shot by military guys, or some of the guys from Hollywood who used to go over and shoot film. It was really a wonderful place to be in order to plug into leadership kinds of things and to mingle with those folks who made decisions.
I like to back you up just 1 second.
Okay.
You haven't talked anything about singing. Up to now, have you done any singing in your life?
Yeah.
Well, as a matter of fact, I did. The first artist who impressed me as a singer, you guys, your lips are going to fall down, was Elvis Presley.
Oh, Lord.
And at the age, let me tell you this, man. At the age of 7, I won a talent show at my school performing All Shook Up by Elvis Presley.
I don't believe it.
So,
you got a video of that, man? Do you have a video of that?
No.
Oh, man.
and I did it with the whole thing, man. I was dressed up in a little suit, and I had the little leg action going, and I had my mother got me a little ukulele that I was using as a guitar.
Man, where was YouTube at?
I know. And so, George, during this time when I'm at the headquarters office and after that, singing was never really part of my thing. I sang in church and that kind of stuff. But after getting, these opportunities at our headquarters unit, I went to a talent show at the Service Club in Virginia, in Vicenza. And a group of guys came out there that just blew the house away in their little green suits, I think it was. And so after watching that, I said, my goodness, man, these cats got a lot. They managed to get an awful lot of attention from performing, and the group was called then the Kents. And I said,
I know that group.
You know that group. Oh, were they brown? That's right. They were chocolate colored. That's right. And so
no, blue suits.
Blue suits. Okay, I'm sorry. Yeah, blue suits.
It was the first suit we ever bought. Blue suits.
Well, you know what? You just proved something. My wife has been telling me for years I was colorblind. So.
Now we know.
But anyway, I saw that group and I said, no. This cannot stand. I got to do that. And so I began the process then of trying to figure out how I could do that. How could we pull a group together? Because I could carry a tune, and I was smart enough to pick it up as we went along. And a guy by the name of Earl Haslip. I don't know if you remember Earl Haslip. Earl used to play the piano and he used to sing like Nat King Cole.
Yeah.
Earl was in my unit. And so he and I started talking, and Earl said, well, man, we can do that. We can, because he was very musically, he's a genius, I think. And so with Earl's help, we pulled together this little group that we named ourselves the Centurions for the sole purpose of winning that Service Club competition. and going into it with the hopes that the Kents were so far advanced that they'd look upon us as, yeah, man, we've won that already. We're not going back. And we were prepared to get sick if you did come back. I want you to know that, okay?
Funny, man.
And so that was the beginning of me, first of all, learning how to, really perform, and then learning how to sing in a group, and because I'd never done that kind of stuff before, although in my family I got, on the Phillips side, man, I got some tremendous singers. In fact, one of my cousins won the, remember that show that used to come on at the Apollo Theater? What was it?
Showtime at the Apollo.
Yeah, Showtime at the Apollo. He won that, yeah. And so there's some tremendous singers on my family's on the Phillips side. I just never did it,
So now the Kents have gotten out of the Army.
Mm-hmm.
But now we need a singer. And then we look back to that guy who was singing with the Centurions.
Yeah, the Elvis Presley guy.
Yeah.
Hey, look here. Based on your reaction today, I'm glad I didn't tell y'all that story back then.
I'm glad you didn't either, boy. I was thinking that.
But I tell you, one of the in terms of singing and all of that, it was a real thrill for us to perform on that Service Club show and to be successful at it, and then to go on, thanks to you guys opening the doors, thanks to the Kents, that is, for opening the doors, we were then able to go into the clubs on the base, and even clubs off of the Caserma Italy, which was the base that we were on, to military bases in other cities, and get paid for it.
Yeah.
So all of that was really, really grand. But I tell you, today, George, you called me about spending time with you guys as you were making the transition from military to the open economy. Was really a thrilling day. It was it really touched me in a way that said to me quickly, go. So it didn't take a lot of thought for me to make that decision, because I said, it's another level of experience, and the mere fact that you guys saw enough potential that you could work with in order to invite me to come and be a part of it was really tremendous. It upset a few other guys, I must tell you that, because it really meant that the Centurions were no more, because I was kind of, the guy that helped to drive it and to sustain it. The wingman, yeah.
I want to ask you, once you got to calling, as we found out, down the road, once you got to calling to preach, what first time? If it wasn't, what made you move on it?
Yeah. Well, I spent 26 years at American Airlines, and worked very hard. From being a reservations agent is how I began, and my career ended as a managing director of urban and community relations for the company. And that department, urban and community relations, which I don't think is called that any longer, I started that department from developing a white paper that I presented to our senior vice president of marketing, who was working to try to keep me with the company. It was one of those things that I'll stay with the company, but here's what I would like to do. And after completing the cycle of our deal, I kind of said, it's time for me to move on, because the management structure had changed, and folks coming in, you know how it is, they want their people in certain jobs, and so your challenge becomes more and more difficult. And I was operating out of Washington, and they wanted me to move to Dallas, which is where headquarters office was. And I said, that's not for me. I said, because he asked me why, and I said, well, primarily because if I move to Dallas, I'm going to be under somebody's thumb, and I can't operate that way. So I had to make a decision. And one day on my way into the office, after wrestling with it for several weeks, something told me, says, this is it. And by the time I got to my office, I picked up the phone, called him, and said, hey, look, I want to let you know that I'm tendering my resignation, and here's the deal I'm prepared to do. And they wanted to fill that job, and so they did the deal. And in the process of that, my daughter was going through an issue, and I went out to deal with that. She was in college, and the issue that one night, I was in prayer, and I told God, I said, if you fix this, Lord, I'll stop running, because I've been running for a long time.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And I tell you, Rudy, the very next day, he fixed it. And my wife will tell you, if you talk to her, when I got home, man, I was sitting at the table telling her the story. I said, I can't run anymore. And I started crying. She said, well, what are you crying for? I said, because I know if I don't stop running now, something tragic is going to happen. So my days of that is over. And so that was the beginning of it. And the year that I retired from American, the 2 weeks before my final day, I gave my first sermon at my church. Mm-hmm. And a year later, just about that same day, I married my daughter off. Uh-huh. And so, so that began my walk with God. And, I retired in 2000. So I've been towing the line ever since. And his quickness on answering my prayers has been steadily increasing. So, he did that one overnight. He's doing stuff now for me within the next hour, so.
I just said, being around you for as long as I have, one thing I noticed about you have a very caring and giving heart, man. And I just want you to shout out to the listeners. What would you tell someone that have a dream of seeking a goal, what they should look for?
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for that. Yeah. And I have, just by way of commenting on what you said, I have always wanted to come forward with a Barnabas kind of heart. Barnabas mm-hmm. was a one that always encouraged other people and always cared about when they were trying to write the Apostle Paul off as being someone who hadn't changed. He was the one that said, no, it ain't like that. Okay. Mm-hmm. And so I've always had that kind of heart. And even during my professional career at American, and now I spend and gain all of my joy from helping other people. And so mm-hmm. at the heart of what I would say to someone looking to reach their dream is to figure out what you can do to enrich and improve the life of others, whether it's mm-hmm. somebody that's close to you that you know or someone that you don't even know. And mm-hmm. and out of that will manifest all of the things that you need in order to achieve whatever goal you may have before you. Because during the process of you helping others to get what they want out of life, somebody is watching you that can help you get what you want out of life. And if you're doing that with a measure of sincerity that breaks through all of the clutter and all of the confusion that we all live with, trying to figure out whether a person is real or not, when you're doing it out of sincerity, it'll break through. And people who are important to you achieving your goals will see it. And I got to tell you, man, it's amazing how energetic those people will get behind you and pushing you to where you're trying to go. So that's kind of what I would say, Rudy, is get your vision clear in your mind in terms of where you want to get to, and then do whatever you can for others to, as you begin to move toward your goal, and the rest will take care of itself. Because nobody gets there by themselves. You know that, right? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. the only master creator is the one that created you and I. So we can sit and tinker and all that kind of stuff, but you got to have help from somebody. And
great words of wisdom, man. Great words.
Yeah, and the best way to get the right somebody to help you is to be sincere in where you're going and how you're trying to get there. I hope that helped you.
Yes, sir. The listeners and for me, just great words of wisdom, man. I take that to heart.
Yeah, and this whole ministry thing is a critical one for me, because when I talk about where I'm trying to go, I'm at that stage in life where we're laying up rewards. For me, is placing them someplace where man or elements can't destroy it, and that is laying my rewards up in glory, right? So all the stuff I do now is focused on legacy building. And legacy building is saying that I'm working hard to help other people, not for me to get the joy out of it, but to show those whom I love, those that are in my family, those that are my friends and associates who are watching me, that this is what it's all about. So that my grandbabies, when they say something about me after I'm gone, will say, they call me Poppy, and other ones call me Papa, that he was, he spent an awful lot of time trying to raise money for people who are hungry. That's my focus now, is helping food banks around the country do what they can to help the needy, because, the Bible said the poor will be with you always. So somebody needs to be working to help them, okay? So they'll be able to say, what I remember most about him was that he was always trying to do something to help somebody else. And I think a lot of my friends over the years, that if you were to call them up today to ask, how long have you known Lou? Well, 25, 30 years. What's your thought about him? Somewhere in the middle of that conversation, they'll tell you that he was always trying to help somebody.
Yeah. I don't think you can say a better thing than that.
Another question. I got one more question, man. I was always curious, man. I mean, I got it. Well, what prompted the birth of the Clio Express? You almost gave some of that, but what prompted that exchange? The whole. So I noticed you are on your Facebook, man. You know Colin Powell. I mean, you knew him. You've been around a lot of people, man, and just what prompted that stuff, man, and you.
Well, I tell you, man, it was a good question. I'm glad you brought it up. Sitting at the table with my wife many years ago, she asked me the question, what is Black History Month all about? And I couldn't answer. I couldn't give a definitive answer. And I said, you know what? This is ridiculous. I've been celebrating Black History Month all these years and don't have a definitive answer. So I began to search. And that's when I discovered and fell in love with Carter G. Woodson. Okay. And out of that discovery, I joined the organization that he founded back in 1920-something, I guess it was, and joined the board and began to really work at it. And that led me to an appreciation for the fact that most other black folks across the country didn't have a clue as to how Carter G. Woodson was connected to Black History Month. That he's the guy that started it as Black History Month. Yeah. And so I said, well, since I'm understand that, and I understand that some of the professors and others, high intellectuals who were part of his association, were all busy trying to build themselves up as opposed to promoting Carter G. Woodson, I said, well, you know what? I'm going to go start a television show to focus to honor Carter G. Woodson and to focus on Black history. And so I created this television show called the Clio Exchange and sold it to Cox Communications with me as the host, and we started doing that. And I did it for like 10 years. And
now, what does Clio stand for?
Clio is the seventh daughter of Zeus. And he had all of his daughters were identified as being muse of something. muse of medicine, muse of mathematics, muse of music, and Clio was the muse of history. And so I had associated Carter G. Woodson as being the muse of black history. And so I connected it by saying the Clio Exchange, making history come alive, because that's what Carter G. Woodson did. You know, he used to fight with Frederick Douglass and those guys all the time because he said, you know, ain't no such thing as talent 10, you know, this 12 or whatever it is. All of African Americans are contributing to the history of this country and ought to be recognized for it. And so that's how the Clio Exchange came about. I pulled it out a few years ago and decided that I was going to try to manage and do it myself because I couldn't get paid to do it. You know, nobody wanted to pay you to broadcast the show. And I said, well, forget that. I'll just do it later on myself. And, of course, with technology today, we're able to do what we're doing now. And so it was time to have it be reborn as a broadcast radio piece.
Wow, and that's great, man. That is.
There you are.
Well, I've got one final question for you, and that is, I'd like to know your three black heroes from your lifetime, during your lifetime. Who would you say were your three most inspirational black heroes in your lifetime?
During my lifetime,
yes.
I'd have to say Martin Luther King, Jr., that is, Colin Powell, and Barack Obama. And I focused in on those areas because of the importance of the political and social system in the world in which we live. If those places aren't populated by people who are strong, courageous, and care about us, everything else doesn't matter.
Yeah, that's right.
And so I would also, as as kind of a final comment from me, would say that it's true for all people, but it's especially meaningful, I think, to African American males, that this thing that we have going, this brotherhood, this unconditional love for one another that is within our group, is critically important for you to find out how to do this. Because our relationship go back to the mid-'60s, and it isn't getting weaker, it's getting stronger. So much so that even when we are not speaking to each other for a year, when we come together, as we have for the past 16 years or something like that, it's as if we just left each other yesterday.
Yeah.
And so I would encourage folks to figure out how to build those kinds of bonds, because it only fits in with what what Christ left as a mission for his disciples. He said, "Love one another," right? And this is, and not just love one another any old way. He says, "As I have loved you," and that whole thing was unconditional, and I think that's what we have. We've all had different pathways we've gone down in our lives. We all have something to contribute to a conversation that has value and worth to those who are listening, and we are non-judgmental. Yeah, doesn't mean we don't disagree, but we disagree without judging.
Yeah.
And so that would be my final comment to the listening audience: is figure out a way to do that, and
all right.
You'll be happy now and happy throughout eternity.
Okay, well, that's wonderful, Lou. It's been wonderful having you as a special guest tonight, and putting you in the hot seat for a change. Now, I've got just a little bit of comedy relief, if anybody's interested.
Lay
I
it
was
on me,
wondering
brother.
what you asked.
Okay. I was sitting in the doctor's office the other day, and I overheard this conversation. It went like this: Doctor, I think I'm a dog. Take a seat. I can't. I'm not allowed on the furniture.
Is that it?
That's it.
But George.
Yeah.
I got to drop one more on you. You can't leave me hanging like that. Here's one for you. How do you make holy water?
I don't know. How do you make holy water?
You boil the hell out of it. On
That's wonderful.
that note.
And on that note, let me just say thanks everybody for joining us on the Clio Express. As usual, it's been a great ride, and will join us again next week for more of the same.
Toodaloo. Okay, the conductor is telling us it's time to move on. We hope you've enjoyed the show. Let us know by sending an email to info@clioexchange-express.com. That's info@clioexchange-express.com. Until next time, we wish you peace of mind, love from the heart, and happiness you cannot explain.